With the breaking news that George T. Stagg 2021 will not exist and they will not be releasing that amazing product this year, that brings up the question of, can you replace George T. Stagg with readily available, easier to find options? Welcome back to Tipsy Whiskey Shenanigans. As always, I'm Steven, and if you haven't done so already, please do me a favor, smash that like button and subscribe. It helps us out a ton. But let's get to the video and why you're really here, which is, can you replace George T. Stagg with readily available, easier to find products? Which, given the term easier, it did leave us a lot of leeway. Given most of these bottles will be readily available, or variants of them are readily available. Some are a little bit harder to find, but surely every bottle on this list will be easier to find than it would be for George T. Stagg, especially in the year 2021, where you're not gonna find a George T. Stagg. So the elephant in the room. Can you really replace George T. Stagg with readily available, easier product to find? And honestly, I don't think you can. I think George T. Stagg is a phenomenal product that doesn't really have an equal in the sphere that it excels in, where it's a ultra aged, hyper complex, hyper proofed bourbon. Because a lot of the bourbons you're gonna find out there aren't aged nearly as long, nor do they have that Buffalo Trace mash bill that excels really, really well at a higher age. Because if anyone follows the channel, I'll do a post of some of our Buffalo Trace type reviews up there. I'm not the biggest fan of a lot of Buffalo Trace-esque bottles that are just younger. They're just simple, boring. They're a little bit more money than I want to spend. Yeah, I don't think you can really replace George T. Stagg with an equivalent bottle that's just as good. Starting off with a bottle I don't actually have. I've tried it at a few bars before, but Discovery Series from Bardstown Bourbon Company. The Discovery Series are usually around like 12, 13, 14-year-old aged bourbons that are very, very good. Bardstown is doing wonderful, wonderful blending over there and turning some really, really good whiskey into some amazing whiskey. Not as high proof and not quite as complex, but again, cheaper, easier to find. I think it's a solid replacement. I just haven't happened to find one around my area, so that's why I don't own one. But we'll skip right into number two. And that is a bottle that you could say is the younger brother of George T. Stagg. And we got Stag Junior, Junior Stag. So again, this is another one on this list that is kind of not so readily available, not as easier to find. In my area, it does happen to be a little bit easier to find than other areas, but it's usually a little bit more expensive than I'd like to pay. That being said, it is still significantly less than you will find a George T. Stagg on the shelf for, but it's not as complex typically. Usually they're around like similar proof types, but it's not as dense in flavor and as complex as George T. Stagg. So it very much so is like a second best to George T. Stagg, but I have seen a few people say that they do like some of these bottles more than a George T. Stagg. I personally haven't gotten there. If you're able to find one of these bad boys, I would definitely suggest to go ahead and pick it up, give it a try. It might not be the complete successor for Stagg, but it is a junior. It's a junior Stagg. And moving on to now, all of these moving forward will be semi-readily available, and usually you will find them at retailish prices. So all three of these, honestly, I probably would prefer to buy multiples of any of these over George T. Stagg, just because these are all really excellent bourbons that I'm about to announce, and they're not hard to find, so you don't have to spend all that time and energy hunting, and you know, cheaper. Which leads me into my next bottle, which is Jack Daniel's Single Barrel, barrel proof. This is a fabulous, fabulous bottle coming from Jack Daniel's Brown-Forman. I think they do really, really good stuff with their aging. They make young whiskey taste older. Sometimes it can be a bit too aggressive. There might be a little bit too much of a banana note, which doesn't quite put that on that Stag Junior or that George T. Stagg level. That being said, they are super easy to find. You can find them $65 everywhere else. And some of the barrel picks are absolutely phenomenal, which could potentially be just as good, if not better, than a George T. Stagg. Me personally, I would rather pick up a few of these bottles of this Jack Daniel's Single Barrel barrel proof rather than finding a Stagg. Anyways, less energy spent, less money spent, and honestly, these are great, great, heavy, complex barrel proof bourbons. Again, probably not as good as Stagg, but you're not going to be upset either. Which will lead me into my next one, which is going to be an asterisk, kind of, ish, something like that. The coveted Single Barrel barrel picks from Knob Creek, or Knob Creek 12-year, but if it was cask strength, because this is not cask strength, this is just the normal 100 proof one, but both of these are really good. So think ultra aged Knob Creek. So I'm talking 12, 13, 14. This specific single barrel I have is 14 years old. Knob Creek 12, it's in the name, it's 12-year-old. I think they're really, really good. They're complex, they're barrel proof. If you find a really, really good single barrel, it could be just as complex, if not more. So honestly, I think there's something that's worth looking into or worth hunting or trying to find. That will lead me into my final one, which is Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. All of these batches are absolutely fire. They are amazing. I love every single one of them. They're at least 12 years old, so again, complex, barrel proof. They're usually at that 126 proof, which is absolutely phenomenal. They knock it out of the park every time. And again, whereas you're gonna find a George T. Stagg for $200, $300, $400, $500, even though the MSRP should theoretically be $100, these you're gonna find $60, $65, $70, $75. I don't think I've seen any of these higher than $75, which is absolutely fantastic, because personally I think this is $80, $90 whiskey with how much price has increased in the realm of bourbon recently. So honestly, again, just to recap, all of these bourbons I think are phenomenal, phenomenal bourbons. No, I don't think they are at that level of just, if we're just grading the whiskey, I don't think they're at that level that matches George T. Stagg, but I do think they are nice replacements to buy instead of George T. Stagg, because you're likely to never find it. If you do, you know, it's your personal choice if you want to spend your money on that. You know, everyone counts value differently. But I think these are great replacements if you're looking for something that delivers complex, barrel-proof bourbon. All of these are complex barrel-proof bourbons, and I think they're phenomenal replacements for George T. Stagg. But just run through really quickly. First, Bardstown Bourbon Company Discovery Series. I don't own a bottle. I've had a few tastes. They're phenomenal, amazing whiskeys. Coming up second, Stag Junior. Probably a little bit harder to find. Younger than Stag, obviously it's in the name, but still very, very good bottles to pick up, and you're likely to find them for way less than you will a George T. Stagg. And then thirdly, we got Jack Daniel's Single Barrel Barrel Proof. These amazing, super easy to find. This is the most readily available of all the bottles on this list. They're roughly around $65. You can find them anywhere, and they kill it, kill it, kill it. And then after that, we got Knob Creek single barrel picks, which are going to be a little bit harder to find nowadays because they're getting rid of that, but they still do have their 12-year-old cask strength, which is the second best for these amazing ultra aged single barrel picks. And then lastly, a consistent killer, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. You're gonna find it for sub $80, and it is comparable to Stag Junior in my opinion. So that's gonna be a wrap for this video. Please do me a favor, get in those comments down below. Let me know what you guys thought about this video and this idea as a whole. Honestly, I had a really hard time finding bottles that I thought were available that could match George T. Stagg, and honestly, I just came up with, I don't think it's truly possible, not in an accurate way at least, because it's just, that's a phenomenal whiskey if it was just the whiskey, but there's all the price tags and all that stuff that comes along with it. Also, please like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. I appreciate your guys' support. It helps out the channel a ton. It helps us bring you better content, invest more in the channel, all that jazz. And check us out on the Instagram, our Facebook, and our Patreon. We appreciate you guys for the support, but that's a wrap. Cheers, y'all. We'll see you later.